This is MLB Network's countdown of the 20 greatest games of the last 50 years. And as we reach number 14, we're reminded that some guys are forever linked. Branca and Thompson, Terry and Mazeroski, Williams and Carter.
And Bob, 18 years later, it's the first time Joe Carter and Mitch Williams will sit down and watch this game together.
Yeah, shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I would have been there and watched the game with him, but Mitch, he gave me the wrong address.
Yeah,
so
on
I went
purpose.
to the wrong house.
He can watch it anywhere he wants. I've seen it more than enough times.
And yet you're going to see it once more. Here comes number 14. So it's game number 14 on the countdown, and it's game 6 of the 1993 World Series between the Phillies and the Blue Jays. Mitch Williams and Joe Carter are here joining me and Tom Verducci. As usual, the background. The Blue Jays won their 3rd straight AL East crown, their 4th in 5 seasons, going 95 and 67, finished 7 ahead of the Yankees, then eliminated the White Sox in the LCS in 6. So this was a team that was used to this kind of success. On the other hand, Mitch's Phillies had several consecutive seasons under 500 before all of a sudden going from last to first and winning the NL East.
They're an upstart here. Finished 26 games out the previous season, whereas Toronto, they were the Yankees before the Yankees were the Yankees. Really, they led the league in attendance, in payroll. If you wanted to win, you hooked on to this bandwagon. In the offseason, you go out and get Dave Stewart. You go out and get Paul Molitor. Come July, you go out and get Ricky Henderson. Joe, these were really the top days in the Toronto franchise.
Well, they definitely were, Tom. And we always said that every day in Toronto was like watching an all-star game because we had that many all-star type players. And, you know, when you look at our lineup, I mean, we had 9 guys, and you look at those and you say, well, you know, who do I key on? You couldn't key on one guy because there were so many guys could beat you. And then we had the pitching staff, like you said, with Dave Stewart and a great closer in Dwayne Ward. He was just automatic.
And a huge part of this was the deal a few years before, which brought you and Roberto Alomar over from the Padres, not for a couple of slouches, for Tony Fernandez and Fred McGriff.
Well, the thing with Pat Gillick had said that they had tried so long to build Toronto into a championship team, and they didn't get it done with George Bell and Fred McGriff. And so, lo and behold, myself and Robbie Alomar are over in San Diego, and they decide to make the trade December 7th, 1990. And they told me that I was traded, and I couldn't believe I was traded, first of all. But then to go to Toronto along with Robbie Alomar for Fred McGriff and Tony Fernandez, something that was unheard of at that time. So I figured I was going to Toronto. I'm like, let's go.
So you guys are the defending world champions, having beaten the Braves the year before in a 6-game World Series. You guys, as I said, Mitch, went from last to first. Jim Fregosi is your manager. You beat the Expos by 3 to win the division. No division series then, right to the LCS. You beat the Braves in 6 to advance to the World Series, and in those 4 victories, you got 2 wins and 2 saves.
Yeah, I mean, we were a team coming out of spring training. We were picked to finish behind the Marlins, who were an expansion team that year. I mean, and nothing for nothing. Pride at some point in this game has to come into play. And that clubhouse was full of a bunch of guys that, ability-wise, maybe marginal. But pride-wise, we all had a lot of pride on that team. And we played every inning of every game that year and ended up in a World Series, probably against, well, no doubt against a team that we didn't match up well with. Because these guys, as Joe said, they were an all-star team. We shouldn't have beaten Atlanta. I mean, if you look at it on paper, there was no way in the world we should have beaten Atlanta.
Tell us about your managers. Cito Gaston, often overlooked.
Well, he definitely was overlooked because he was so quiet. He wasn't the rah-rah type of guy that go out there and kick dirt on the umpires and get into an argument, yell and scream. Cito basically had 1 meeting a year, and that was in spring training. And when he talked, you had to be very quiet because, you know, he's a very quiet guy. But what he does, he manages you he instilled confidence in us. You know, not once do we ever have to look back over our shoulders and say, is he going to take us out? Because in this situation, he says no. He's instilling confidence for the future. And for a guy like that, we all love playing for Cito. And if you couldn't play for Cito, you couldn't play for anybody.
How about Jim Fregosi?
All my success in the American League, basically, my first 3 years, was against Verducci and the White Sox. So day one, Verducci calls me in and says, "You're my closer." And the great thing about Jimmy was he handed me the ball and walked up the tunnel and smoked. he said, "Someone just let me know when it's over with." He knew it was going to be ugly. He knew it was not going to be 1, 2, 3. He just, here's the ball. Give me my cigarettes. I'll see you when it's over.
Yeah, but the thing is, when he first acquired you, he was a 1-pack-a-day guy. By the time you were done with him, he was a 3-pack-a-day guy.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about that. I think his quote was, "Mitch doesn't have an ulcer, but he's a carrier."
All right, let's get you up to speed on how we reached Game 6. And this was not your routine World Series. Game 1, Toronto wins at Skydome 8-5. Al Leiter, our own Al Leiter, is the winner in relief. John Olerud's home run off Curt Schilling is the key blow. Game 2, the Phillies come back and win 6-4. Terry Mulholland the win, Mitch the save. Jim Eisenreich, a big 3-run homer. That's key. They go to Veterans Stadium for games 3, 4, and 5. Molitor goes 3 for 4 in a 10-3 Blue Jay win in Game 3. Henkin over Danny Jackson. Then comes Game 4.
Oh, boy.
And this is a game for the ages. This is a game that could be somewhere on this list. The Phillies lead, I hate to bring this up, the Phillies lead.
I hate for you to bring it up.
14-10.
I enjoy it.
In the 8th, when with 1 out, you relieve Larry Anderson. Now let's take a look at what happens. The score is 14-10. And here comes Mitch. First hitter, Tony Fernandez.
Just a routine single to left field.
Ricky Henderson.
And these balls, honestly, I thought this ball
That was a
he
broken
hit,
bat.
I honestly thought that was I was walking off the mound.
This was not a broken bat, though.
I thought it was an out. And this one here, too. Both these balls, when they were hit, I thought they're just routine fly balls.
But as you know, that's the kind of game that game was. Everything was falling in. No one could stop anybody in this game.
No, I mean, there was a ton of rain. It seemed like whoever got the last at bat was going to win, and we got the last at bat. We just didn't win.
They scored 6 runs in the 8th. They win the game 15-14, go up 3-1. Then Curt Schilling goes the route in Game 5 and throws 147 pitches, a 5-hit shutout, wins the game 2-0, and that sends it back to Toronto. All right, let's take a look at the lineups now as we go to Game 6, starting with the Phillies, who are, of course, the visitors. Dykstra, Duncan, Kruk, who was a consistent 300 hitter at that point. Hollins is the cleanup man. Darren Daulton. Jim Eisenreich, who had his moments throughout his career and often in the postseason. Milt Thompson, Kevin Stocker, and Mickey Morandini is at the bottom. It is, of course, a DH game in an American League park. And here's the lineup for the Blue Jays. And this is a lineup that really makes you say, whoa. Henderson, White, Molitor, Carter, Olerud, who was hitting over 400 in early August and wound up at 363. Roberto Alomar, new Hall of Famer, an all-time great. Tony Fernandez back with the Blue Jays after going to San Diego, then returning. Ed Sprague and Pat Borders at the bottom. And now the pitching pairing, Terry Mulholland versus Dave Stewart. Mulholland had been the winner in Game 2 with Mitch getting the save, and Dave Stewart was always a big-time pitcher when games really mattered.
He loved getting the ball, especially when he had a chance to close out series. He had 5 wins to end series. Only Andy Pettitte has more. So you talk about big-game pitchers, the conversation has to include Dave Stewart.
All right, then, let's get to the game. Top of the first, Sean McDonough is calling the game with Tim McCarver. Dave Stewart is on the mound for the Blue Jays.
Stewart is ready to go, and Lenny Dykstra will step in to get Game 6 underway.
The good thing about Dave is he was a big-time pitcher, and he always wanted to be up in those situations. He wanted to be on the mound. He never had a great World Series, but in the LCSs, I mean, he was money in the bank. But for some reason, he never got the wins in the World Series.
Here is a pumped-up Lenny Dykstra. Pumped up literally and probably figuratively, all amped for the game, but pumped up in a different sense, and goes down swinging against Stewart.
Hands down, the most baseball-savvy individual I ever played with. Lenny Dykstra knew the game of baseball better than anyone I ever played with, inside and out.
Joe makes the running catch on the fly ball by Mariano Duncan, who actually had a good World Series, hit almost 350 for the Phils.
I did use my glove in that World Series.
Yeah, for something other than sitting on it.
John Kruk got a walk, so there's a man on first with 2 out. Here's the cleanup man, Dave Hollins.
In the air in shallow right. Carter charging hard. Alomar way out, and Carter makes the catch. After a half inning at Skydome, the Phillies nothing, and the Blue Jays coming up. No scores. The Blue Jays bat for the first time tonight, and Ricky Henderson strides to the plate. The center field and Dykstra, 1 out. They just walked White. They wanted to peel down to first.
Henderson had lined out to start the game, and as you just saw, Devon White walked, and here is the great Paul Molitor.
Molitor to right center, well hit. Eisenreich on the run, looking up. It's off the wall and a hop. White speeding toward third. He'll come around to score. Molitor into third with a triple. And the Blue Jays lead 1-0.
What people don't realize, Bob and Tom, is that in this series, because we were in spring training, trained together, we were basically 5 minutes apart from one another. And we played each other, what, about 10 or 12 times?
Yeah, the Phillies in Clearwater, you guys in Dunedin.
So we knew, we knew all their pitchers, they knew all of our pitchers, so it was not going to be a pitching series. This was going to be a hitter's paradise.
Carter, high fly ball to left.
Joe, it looks like you just barely missed that one.
I did.
Sent Milt Thompson to the track, but it's good for the sac fly, and it's 2-0.
And that's something that we did throughout the whole series, and I'm sure Mitch will tell you, we put pressure on them right from the very first inning.
And this is a guy that got overlooked so much, was Olerud. I mean, a very good first baseman, a tremendous handler of the bat. There was not a hole in this lineup where you got to go, okay, I get to take a breath.
Yeah, this is impressive here.
Yeah.
The bases have been cleared, and now you're starting a second rally in effect here with Olerud keeping it going. But you're right, Joe. This is the 3rd time the Jays will score 3 runs in the first inning of the game. When you start with this lineup from the top, that's a lot to work through.
And where do you get a breather in this lineup? The answer is almost nowhere, maybe down at 8 and 9. Here comes Roberto Alomar.
1 ball and 2 strikes. 2 outs. Olerud at second. 2 runs in on the Toronto first. Up the middle, base hit past the diving Stalker. Olerud comes around to score. And the Blue Jays lead is 3-0.
Roberto Alomar wound up hitting .480 for the World Series, and now it's 3-0.
Terry Mulholland made some good pitches. That ball is 4 inches off the plate away.
At the knees.
At the knees, and Robbie's able to get the ball up the middle. They were just a lineup that if they got that much room, they were going to bury you.
Okay, so here we are. The Blue Jays have an early 3-run lead, but coming up, some game-changing hustle from a surprising source. You're watching MLB's 20 greatest games of the last 50 seasons. This is number 14.
Stewart has fallen behind the last 4 hitters, but he has come back to retire 3 in a row and now come back on Stalker.
And his 2-2 pitch. There's a fly ball to center. Routine play for Devon White. Warren Deaning to White. 2 down. 1-2 the count on Duncan. He struck him out.
So Dave Stewart cruises through the 2nd, and as you just saw, the 3rd. Now in the top of the 4th, he gets John Kruk to ground out and Dave Hollins to foul out. Then with 2 down, Darren Daulton steps to the plate. Sean McDonough and Tim McCarver again with the call.
3 2/3 hitless innings thrown by Stewart. He's working with a 3-0 lead in the 4th. Little looper, big trouble, and the first hit for Philadelphia. No chance for Sprague or Henderson. Daulton trying for 2, and he is safe at second.
You know, Mitch, they may have had more talent, but this was the way you guys played.
Well, and this is the great thing about this. You watch this. Dutch knows there's 2 outs. He's got to make something happen. He's got the opportunity. Everybody knows Ricky does not throw that well in left field. Covers a lot of ground, catches a ball, but does not throw that well. And Dutch, who's had 58 knee surgeries, is busting at the second base to get in scoring position because he knows we've got to make something happen at this point in the game.
So here's Eisenreich, and again, Sean McDonough.
The payoff pitch. Little looper and a base hit. Dalton being waved around. Devon White with the throw to the plate. It's cut off. And the Phillies are on the board. It's 3-1.
Darren Dalton created this run. I mean, he got that double because he busted it from his first step. And watch his secondary lead right here from second base. That's the reason why he scores without a play at home.
Absolutely.
Not the fastest guy, but a great base runner.
Tremendous base runner, knowledge of the game, knowledge of the hitter at the plate. And you know Izzy's going to make contact. He's not a strikeout guy. So the ball's put in play. As you said, Dutch got a great secondary lead, and there is no play at the plate.
Watching Roberto Alomar lead off with a fly ball to deep left. Thompson on the run over his head.
Right away, bottom of the fourth, Alomar narrowly misses a home run.
When a team scores, you know, you want to come down as a pitcher. You want to shut the team out the very next inning. You want to call it shutdown. And so as the hitters, you say, look, let's take away their momentum. And so we immediately come right back. Robbie just missed a home run, and now you got the third best hitter in the league. He's hitting sixth in our lineup. And so, you know, it just behooves the situation that, you know, we've got a loaded ball club, but we knew that we could not keep the Phillies down, you know, the whole game. They were going to come back.
Alomar hit .326 during the regular year, nearly .500 in the World Series. Tony Fernandez, the batter now.
And this is a guy here, Tony, at this point in his career. I mean, he was with the Blue Jays when I came up in '86, and now we're talking '93. He's at a point in his career that he will do whatever he has to do to either advance a runner, whatever is necessary to put a runner in scoring position. He was just that kind of player.
And here's Ed Sprague with a long drive to the opposite field. Eisenreich makes the catch, and Alomar can just cruise home, and it's 4-1.
That's a great example again, Joe. Get him over, get him in. Now two of the four runs have been scored on outs.
Every day in batting practice, the last 2 or 3 rounds of hitting, we say, get the guy over, get him in. Every single day for as long as I was there, the 7 years I was there, we did it every single day.
So the feeling of a little bit of momentum, which you just alluded to, get on the board, 3-1.
Yeah.
That's stuffed right back in your face.
And as Joe said, you get that run, you want that shutdown inning. Well, Robbie coming up there and hitting the ball off the wall, and he's already in scoring position. Now Tony Fernandez comes up, hits a chopper, and if you watch that play, that ball's to the left side of the shortstop.
Instincts.
Robbie made a tremendous read on that ball, knowing it had enough height in the hop to where he could get to third safely, and they'd have to make the play at first. It's called baseball intellect, and that team in Toronto was loaded with it.
So the Blue Jays are again up by 3, and up next, something you rarely see the Hall of Famer Mitch Williams just referred to do. You're watching MLB's 20 Greatest Games. Welcome back as we continue with Joe Carter and Mitch Williams to review Game 6 of the 1993 World Series. It's game number 14 on the countdown. Top of the 5th now, 4-1 in favor of Toronto. After a Kevin Stocker lineout, Mickey Morandini comes up to face Dave Stewart. Sean and Tim in the booth.
Mickey Morandini wearing the protective gear on his front foot. Alomar boots it. A rare error by the 2-time Gold Glover at second base, Roberto Alomar.
That ball hit the seam, and there's a seam that kind of going out towards center field, and it hits right off the seam and kicks up. But you don't see that too often with Robbie Alomar.
That's a great point, Joe. I actually thought this could have been scored a base hit because you can see this ball take a bad hop.
Right.
People say, "What? He's on turf. There's no such thing as a bad hop." Yes, there is, and that's proof.
Yeah, when you see those seams and the ball hits it because it's spinning, it takes the spin off of it and reverses it. The ball comes up, and so Robbie, you know, that doesn't happen too often.
No, Joe didn't have to field many balls on the ground out there in right field.
After Dykstra flies out, Mariano Duncan is the hitter.
Duncan down to third. Sprague dropped the ball and has no play.
Now, no excuse about a seam there.
No. That ball got caught in the lights in the air.
That was the seams on the baseball.
Yeah, that was a bad hop in the air. But I think Ed Sprague right there, because it was a high chopper. You kind of peek as an infielder. You kind of peek and see where the runner at if you have a chance to go to second base. But then knowing it's a high chopper, makes you hurry a little bit. And 2 errors in the one inning against us wasn't looking too good for us right there.
So Stewart walks Kruk. The bases are loaded with 2 out. and a chance for Dave Hollins.
The Phillies have reached Game 6 of the World Series with very little in the postseason from their cleanup hitter. And that continues as Hollins is out on the bounding ball to first.
The tying runs are left aboard, and it's still 4-1 as they get out of the bases-loaded jam.
Dave Stewart was always very good in those tight situations. You go back to the '93 LCS against the White Sox. Game 6, he's pitching. Bases loaded, nobody out. We're only up a run, and it's like the 5th or 6th, 7th inning. And he gets out of the jam. 3 straight outs with the bases loaded, nobody out in Game 6 of the LCS. So when the cream rises to the top, well, with Dave Stewart, he loves those situations.
That's the kind of inning, the one just concluded, where you say against a guy like Dave Stewart, we got to break through here. We got the bases loaded on a walk and 2 errors. We just need 1 base hit, and we're back in the game.
We loaded the bases there, and I know how our lineup felt. Yeah, we didn't get any runs in that inning, but now our lineup is starting to feel we're going to get to it.
Coming up, a Hall of Famer does something that had never been done before in a World Series. This is MLB's 20 Greatest Games, number 14 from 1993. With Tom Verducci, as always, Bob Costas reviewing number 14 on our countdown of the 20 greatest games of the last 50 seasons. It's Game 6 of the 1993 World Series, and so Joe Carter and Mitch Williams are here to help us review it. When we left off, Dave Stewart and the Blue Jays had escaped from a bases-loaded jam in the top of the 5th. We go now to the bottom half of that inning, where Terry Mulholland is facing Devon White.
White to right. Eisenreich is there, 1 out.
All right, so 1 out, and that's going to bring up Paul Molitor.
Molitor reducing the likelihood of a Game 7 somewhat with a tremendous blast into the second deck and left.
Paul Molitor has the quietest stance as far as hitting. He's got the quickest hands.
Almost no stride.
No stride, because it's all upper body and it's all hands. And you don't see that too often with any ball player, to be able to have hands like that. And so I saw it the whole year. Phenomenal.
And I remember talking to Paul after the game. Watch this. As he's rounding the bases, he actually caught sight of his father in the stands. He told me I was going to give it a Kirk Gibson fist pump rounding the bases, but he caught sight of his dad and decided I'm going to low-key it. He said that was enough for me to see my dad. I didn't want to show up the opposition. You know that's not Molitor's way.
Joe Carter down to third. Long throw for Hollins.
Close play at first as Joe grounded out to Dave Hollins at third. Then Olerud hits it right on the button, but right at Lenny Dykstra. So the Blue Jays get the 1 on the homer by Molitor. And here's something that's an oddity, but it's still an achievement. It's never been done prior to or since that 1993 World Series. That home run gave Molitor 2 homers, 2 triples, and 2 doubles in the World Series. There has never been a time when someone had multiple doubles, triples, and home runs in the same World Series.
And that home run, Bob, to me, it felt like a dagger. You know, you're looking for a tack-on run right there up 3,
Insurance
and he
run.
Gave it to Toronto at that point.
I've always said there are 2 guys who could be 0 for 10, and then the next thing you know, they're 10 for 20, and that's Paul Molitor and Kirby Puckett. You know, they get hits that quickly. And you look back at Molitor's first World Series, at Game 1 against the Cardinals, he had 5 hits.
Yep, 5 hits.
So he loves that spotlight. He is the consummate professional. And as a hitter, you know, for such a long time in Toronto, we hated the guy. We hated facing him in Milwaukee because he killed us. Every single time. And so finally getting him to our side, you talk about happy. I mean, because here's a guy, I mean, no matter what, base hit, he could steal the base, he could play 8 different positions on the field, and he had tremendous power. So to see that close up every single day.
And you're talking about a guy that dealt with injuries throughout his career.
Yeah.
There's no telling how many more hits he could have had in his career had he not had the injuries that he did have to suffer through. But I look at him and honestly, I wish he'd have got like a 7-day flu back then.
Oh, no.
Because he was one of those guys that there was really no. I always judged a hitter by is there a way to attack him? Is there a way to go at this guy?
And there was no way.
There was no one way to go at Molitor. There simply wasn't.
It wasn't up and in, low and away, the scouting report?
No.
Okay.
No, and with Joe, there was a way to go at Joe. He was an RBI guy. If there's a guy standing on second, you can throw the rosin bag. Joe's going to swing. he got paid to drive in runs. I knew that about Joe. He was an RBI guy.
You knew it, but we'll get to that in a bit. Molly's homer has given the Blue Jays a 4-run lead. When we come back, the crowd at Skydome is going to suddenly get very quiet. Welcome back to Game 6 of the 1993 World Series. The Blue Jays lead 3-2. Dave Stewart, their ace, is on the mound. He needs 9 more outs to close out the World Series. The score is 5-1 as Kevin Stocker leads off on the top of the 7th.
You know, even though Stocker didn't get a lot of hits that World Series, Bob, he was a gnat the whole series because he worked the count every single time up. It seemed like it was 14, 15 pitches from every time he's at the plate. And although I think he was like 2 for 13 or something like that, but it was far better because he took his toll on all of our pitchers.
And Stock was a guy that was brought up in the middle of the year simply for his glove. It was a bonus.
But
well, that's a huge at-bat. That's a 10-pitch at-bat with Stewart holding a 4-run lead.
So he battled Stewart there, fouled one off on the 3-2 pitch, worked the walk. That brings up Mickey Morandini, as you see.
Line drive, base hit. Over the glove of Fernandez. Cut off by Henderson. Stocker continues to third, and here come the Phillies.
So first and third, nobody out, with Dykstra coming up.
It seems like everything happens with the leadoff walk. You get to the 7th inning, and all of a sudden you're counting the outs, 9 outs.
Yep.
You know, let's get the outs, and so you lose sight of what you should be focused on right then and there.
So obviously we're at a key sequence here with Stewart. He's approaching 120 pitches. You love his big game experience, so you want to give him some rope, but now you've got Dykstra.
Yeah.
He's your leadoff hitter, but this is a season in which he's turned himself into a 3 or a 4 hitter with the kind of power he has.
Let me show you. When I talk about Lenny Dykstra being a very baseball-savvy individual, he puts himself in a 3-1 count here with Dave Stewart on the mound. He has one thought. He's going to look for a ball middle in. And this is, I mean, you're going to see it here.
Well hit to right, way back, and that one is way out of here. Second deck home run for Lenny Dykstra. And all of a sudden, it's a 1-run game, 5-4.
Dykstra hit 19 homers during the season, career high. But that's his 4th homer in 6 games in this World Series. Now, Galen Cisco was at the mound, Cito Gaston was on the phone, and now they're wishing they'd made the move at least 1 hitter sooner.
You know, in that series, what do we call him, Babe Ruth?
Oh, I'm not kidding you.
Because I mean, that's exactly what he did the whole series.
He put on a display, and that's what I mean. And Joe knows as a hitter, when you put yourself in a cripple count as a hitter, you are looking for a pitch in a zone, and if you get it, don't miss it. And Lenny put himself in that position in the count. And you're talking about a guy that is, what, 5'7", standing on his tiptoes, and 205. He still put a charge in the ball.
By the way, if Dykstra was 205, that was up from about 165 only a few years earlier. And, you know, like a lot of these things, it's complicated. You know, Dykstra has had post-career problems. We know now what we know about the steroid era. And yet, essentially, Lenny Dykstra was a Pete Rose-type player. That's why they called him Nails. There was something about Lenny Dykstra when he first came up with the Mets that was very appealing. And as you said, Mitch, it isn't only one thing. Whatever transformed his body, it then interacted with his baseball intellect, with his inherent toughness, with his ability to rise to the occasion in pressure spots, as we just saw.
Oh, he was a big game guy. There's no question about it.
And some guys like being there.
They do like being there, and there's guys that, like I said, I wouldn't ask Lenny to do my taxes. But if I had to have a guy walk on the baseball field,
he wouldn't be your financial advisor.
So here's Mitch. Lenny Dykstra, H&R Block. Lenny Dykstra, H&R Block.
No, Lenny Dykstra, my Akita. And my Akita just came to my taxes. But if I had to have a hit in a situation, in a baseball game, or I needed a walk, trust me when I tell you this, if Lenny Dykstra turned around and said to the umpire that ball's a ball, it was a ball. That's all there was to it. He knew the strike zone.
All right, Dave Stewart is now out of the game after Dykstra takes him out of the park. Let's take a look at the starters' lines. And until the bottom fell out in the 7th, when he couldn't get anybody out, Stewart was cruising along.
He really had that game in hand, and now all of a sudden, you know, the house is on fire, and someone's got to come in and stop things.
So Dave Stewart leaves with a lead that is now down to a single run. We'll see what happens next when we come back on MLB's 20 Greatest Games. This is number 14 from 1993. Okay, as we continue, Dave Stewart has been knocked out of the game by the Dykstra homer. It's 5-4 now in favor of Toronto. Still nobody out on the top of the 7th. Danny Cox comes out of the bullpen. First batter, Mariano Duncan.
This is where it gets tough. As a player, you know, you were up 5-1, now it's 5-4, and now you say, uh-oh, here we go.
Here's Duncan, hit .282 during the regular season, .345 in the World Series, dumps one into center for a base hit.
And now you get Dave Hollins at the plate, who's not having a good series. And trust me, if Davey's not having a good series, no one's having fun. It's like they say, if the wife ain't happy, no one's happy. Well, if Dave ain't happy, no one was happy.
This is a great play by Duncan here. I mean, Cox has a high leg kick going home, and he's not a base stealer, but a smart base runner, and takes the bag to put the tying run now in scoring position.
I mean,
a risk, but a calculated one.
And you look at that, dudes, when you watch that, he absolutely stole that off Danny because it was actually a great pitch to throw on for Borders. The ball, it's almost essentially a pitch out. The ball's up, out over the plate, away from him, and Mariano absolutely stole the base on Danny.
So now a base hit ties the game. Let's see if Hollins can get it.
Tying run at second. Full count on Hollins. The payoff pitch. Up the middle, a base hit. Duncan waved around, and he will score. 5-5.
And what are you thinking, Joe? The game's tied now.
Well, I'm thinking you don't want to go to Game 7. You know, because that's what I'm thinking now, because now we're the 5-1 lead. We're all tied up. You know, let's keep this game, you know, even though it's 5-5, you know, let's not let them get any more runs because we feel we can manufacture a run at the drop of a hat with the lineup that we had.
Now, there's a string of left-handed hitters here. Hollins gets the base hit, another look at it, to tie at 5-5. The next hitter is Darren Dalton, and behind him is Jim Eisenreich. We saw Al Leiter warming up along with Cox, but Verducci is mindful of what happened in Game 4 when Leiter pitched 2 2/3 and was knocked around for 6 runs. That might make him reluctant to go to Al in this situation.
Cito didn't always do things by the book.
Exactly. You know, Cito would play a hunch at times, and he knew the bullpens were depleted that whole series because, like I said, this was not a pitcher's series. This was a hitter series.
I misspoke. I said Verducci obviously meant Gaston. Verducci knew it too, but he was happy about it.
Absolutely. And when you look at this, if I'm not mistaken, we had 3 guys on this team in '93 that walked over 100 times. So there wasn't a bunch of guys up there just gashing and slashing at stuff. They made you, they worked the count, they made you throw strikes.
High chopper could be a big problem. It will be. Everybody's safe. Bases full of Phillies with 1 out. An infield hit for Jim Eisenreich.
You know, as a player, when you're up 3-2, you don't want to see no part of Game 7. As a fan, you want to see the whole series go to Game 7. And so now we're in the outfield going, oh, you know, the nerves are kind of kicking in now because, you know, the whole series, no one was nervous until this time because now it's almost clinching time.
Now Gaston does go to Leiter. Milt Thompson, the scheduled hitter, another left-handed batter. Verducci goes to Pete Incaviglia off the bench.
Leiter pitching on his 28th birthday. And Incaviglia drives one to center. Deep enough to bring the go-ahead run in for Philadelphia. Hollins comes to the plate to make it 6-5 Phillies.
Pete is a first ball, fastball hitter.
Down.
And when you've got a cutter like Al does, even a breaking ball, you don't want to throw him a first pitch, you know, fastball pitch. You want to throw him some because he will strike out.
You can elevate, you get ahead, you throw him off speed to get ahead, and then elevate with your fastball to get him out.
Exactly.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that scenario, too, because there's another guy sitting
There's
to
a
my
breaking
right.
ball. Well, there's a breaking ball that Al throws that he should have thrown to Pete the very first pitch.
So Stocker fans to end the inning, but from 5-1 down, the Phillies are now up 6-5.
And you look at it, and like I said, I'm sitting in that dugout this whole time going, look, I got Game 4 in my rearview mirror. I had a horrible game. I want redemption. I want the opportunity to get in this ball game, and now we've got the lead. Can we hold this lead in the 8th and get it to the 9th, and will Verducci bring me back out there? That's all I'm thinking the whole time.
You're not certain whether Verducci is going to give you The last 3 outs?
No, I was fairly certain he would give me the ball.
But at this point, there's 6 outs to go, not 3. 1-run lead for the Phillies. Coming up, why is Jim Fregosi so upset? You'll find out after this. Okay, welcome back to number 14 on the countdown of MLB's 20 greatest games of the past 50 seasons. Bottom of the 8th now. Roger Mason is on for his 3rd inning of relief for the Phillies. Joe Carter leads off for Toronto.
Well, the thing about Roger, you said your 3rd inning of relief is because the bullpens were depleted. And so now you're trying to get some innings because now not only do you think about Game 6, but you're also got to think about Game 7 in the back of your mind.
But bridging from Mulholland to Mitch, this bullpen has done a good job.
They've done a tremendous job all year long. I mean, I ended up with 43 saves that year, and it was because of the job that David West and Larry Anderson did in the 7th and 8th inning all year long. Roger, I think we got mid-season that year. We got him. We got Bobby Thigpen. There was a lot of guys that we ran in out of that bullpen in front of me, and they all did phenomenal jobs that year. And people didn't understand, David West threw a lot harder than people realized. And right there, that's a strike. I'm sorry, but
That's a ball.
Yeah.
Bubba boxed.
Catcher catches it backhanded, that's a ball.
Bubba
Sorry.
boxed that pitch right there.
Ball 4. West walks Olerud on 5 pitches.
Obviously, Fregosi is playing the percentages here, trying to match up West on Olerud, and it's the last thing you want to see is the base on balls.
So West gets only 1 hitter, loses him on the walk, and Fregosi yanks him and brings in Larry Anderson. Alfredo Griffin running for Olerud. Now, you want the speed in this situation. You're down a run. On the other hand, if the game's extended, you're losing Olerud, who hit 363.
Well, you definitely are. And then if you look back at it, which I thought may come into play, Alfredo is now hidden behind me.
So you don't have protection,
Right,
like
you
you
don't
do
have
with
that protection,
Olerud.
yeah.
Now the 2-2 pitch, just outside. Anderson spins away in disgust, and Fregosi hollering out at Dana DeMuth.
Now, at this point, Fregosi has had enough of Dana DeMuth, who's got the plate.
And to see his own pitcher react that way.
Well, number one, Larry Anderson does not argue pitches.
It's ball. It's outside.
Griffin runs this time. It's bounced down to first. They get the out there.
Tremendous play there by Kruk. He couldn't get up Alfredo Griffin. Number one, L.A. did not have a slide step. He had a very high leg kick. He never threw out of a slide step. Griffin was going to get a jump, and I think he was running on that pitch.
Yes.
He had to have been running, or Kruk wouldn't have been able to go to second.
But now Anderson hits Fernandez.
Well,
so you got 2 men on.
Larry Anderson is tiptoeing through a minefield in this inning. He clearly doesn't have his best command. He's taking a lot of time in between pitches, taking great gulps of air.
Well, he's done. I mean, we've all Larry said we're cooked. I mean, Fregosi knew David West was cooked. L.A. was cooked. I mean, we're all pretty well spent at this time, but that's both teams.
Yeah.
And he could go to you here. I mean, Anderson struggling with the bottom of the order, hits Fernandez, walks Sprague. This isn't Fregosi. This is Johnny Padres, the 1955 World Series hero, who's the Phillies pitching coach.
And I'll guarantee you, Pod is going out there right now, and you go, "You're throwing the ball great right now, son. You're throwing it great."
Borders has only driven in 1 run in this World Series. He was the most valuable player of the World Series last year. Griffin, the tying run at third. Fernandez, the go-ahead run at second. And Ed Sprague at first. The 1-2 to Borders is a pop-up.
Slider.
Pulled off a slider.
Yeah,
else,
pulled off
right?
a slider. Yeah, pulled off a slider. And you know, even though we got, you know, the bases loaded and didn't score a run, the good thing was we sent 6 guys to the plate, so now we've turned the lineup over.
And the top is going to come up in the bottom of the 9th.
Yeah.
Borders is the number 9 hitter. He pops out to Morandini. They leave the bases loaded. Lots of activity, no runs.
Huge.
But like you said, you've dispensed with the bottom of the order.
Right, because now Ricky's going to be coming up, and we know that Ricky is going to get on base. We knew that. You know, he's going to walk somehow, but at least the bases will not be clogged with Borders in front of him, and Ricky can do his damage.
You know you're coming on in the bottom of the 9th at this point. Were you surprised that he didn't go to you in the 8th there with the bases loaded?
No. No, I thought he'd stay with Larry at that point. That's what he'd done for the majority of the year. And Larry having his slider and Borders at the plate, Pat Borders was not known as a breaking ball hitter. He was known as a fastball hitting catcher. So it didn't surprise me they left him in there. I'm ready in the bullpen. I know I'm coming out there in the ninth. I know who I've got. I know Ricky's leading off. I know what I've done against him in my career. I'm walking him or striking him out.
Are you thinking in the bullpen, are you thinking only about the guys you're going to face, or are you rooting for your guys to give you some breathing room in the top half?
I don't want any breathing room. I wanted to get to the mound. Honestly, I was always that way. I didn't want any extra runs. I wanted to get to the mound. And my sole objective when I got there was one pitch at a time to Ricky.
There's a sense of being intense. And, you know, when you get extra runs, it's almost like, okay, you tend to relax a little bit. So, and some people in certain situations, they want it to be close. They don't want that luxury. You know, a manager, sure, he wants that luxury.
I've never been anywhere close to where you guys are. But common sense tells me, I don't care if I'm Mariano Rivera, I don't care who make it 8-5, not 6-5.
And see, I was never that way. Even if I pitched in the 8th, if I came in the 8th, I didn't want my team to score me any more runs. I basically rooted for a 3-up, 3-down inning.
But Mitch, tell
me,
get
out there.
Honestly, what you're bringing to the mound at this point, besides desire. Because Jim didn't give you the ball in the 8th inning all year long, but did it a couple of times in the postseason,
right,
twice in this World Series, didn't pitch well down the stretch. Your velocity's starting to go down. What do you feel about what you've got left in the tank?
Honestly, I felt great. Did I have my best fastball? No, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I did. To me, I always took the mound knowing the hitter doesn't hit how you feel. He hits what he sees. And if I make pitches, I can get outs.
Well, the Phillies, as you just saw, got out of the bases-loaded jam, and that kind of extends the tension. In the top of the ninth, the Blue Jays closer Dwayne Ward gets the first two batters. During Jim Eisenreich's at-bat, listen as Sean McDonough tries to take us into Jim Fragosi's head.
Jim Verducci has said several times in this postseason, you manage the way you did in the regular season. Well, during the regular season, in an instance like this, it's a one-run game going to the bottom of the ninth, he hands the ball over to Mitch Williams. Given wild things, difficulties, when you give him the ball in the bottom of the ninth tonight. Ward did his job, a 1-2-3-9. Last chance for Toronto coming up.
Remember that old television series, Get Smart, with Don Adams. The great line in that was right 99. Well, Jim Fregosi getting smart and calling in number 99 again. 43 saves this year. It was not a clear-cut thing. I mean, the last time out, Mitch Williams was laced all over Veterans Stadium.
Tim McCarver with the rare but always appreciated Barbara Feldon reference from the old Get Smart series. Barbara Feldon was Agent 99. You were number 99.
Yep.
Tim laid it out, 43 saves during the season. You'd faced 11 batters in this World Series, and 6 of them had reached.
Oh, yeah. I did not. I'm not going to mince words. I did not throw well. I mean, there's no excuses. There's just the game. You either make pitches or you don't make pitches. And in this series, I did not make very good pitches.
And, Joe, what's going on in the Toronto dugout, bottom 9, down 1?
Well, we're excited because, one is because, you know, we got a chance with Ricky being up the top of the lineup. And all those years we'd faced him in Oakland and New York and just could not stand him because he creates havoc. And he always finds a way to get on first, to get on base. And now with the top of the order coming up, I mean, we knew that Mitch was in and he had to face our vaunted lineup with Ricky, Devon White, Molitor, myself, Olerud. Well, Olerud's out of the game, but we had everything in place the way we wanted it.
All right, here we go. Mitch on the mound, Ricky Henderson to lead it off.
Top of the order, Ricky Henderson, Devon White, and Paul Molitor. The Blue Jays need a run to force extra innings. 2 runs, and they're the world champion.
And Ricky here does something that he always did. See, he knew I never looked home.
So
I always looked down.
Why is Dalton running? I mean, he's got on catcher's gear and a glove.
I have no idea why Dutch is running, but what I should have done is what I always did, is just fire it over the hitter's head.
Well, that's what Roger does.
Right here. They call timeout in the middle of it. That's fine. And right there, I could have blown my arm up, anything. I should have just fired it over his head. And I didn't get the ball down to him at all on this at bat.
Well, you know, Mitch, you have to throw Ricky. He's going to make you throw three strikes.
He's going to make you throw 4 strikes.
He's going to take until he's put in a situation where he has to swing the bat. I know that, and I'm rushing. My whole lower half is rushing during this at bat, and like I said, there's just no excuses here. It just did not get there.
Besides annoying you, did that escapade with stepping out of the box and you having to cut off the delivery and still holding on to the ball, did that throw you off?
No, that's something that a lot of hitters did to me.
Well,
because, as I said, I looked down. I didn't look at the plate.
Not
so
a good
you walk
sign
him on 4 pitches.
when your catcher comes out after 2 pitches into the game.
Yeah.
But Dalton just trying to settle you down. Now he's out again.
Yeah. He goes, "You just walked Ricky." I go, "Yeah, and I know." And this is where we talk about me throwing out of a slide step, which I have never done my entire career.
But it's Ricky at first.
It's Ricky at first, and here you're going to see first pitch of Devo. You'll have your normal leg kick here on 1 pitch.
Right, exactly, and it's strike 1.
So what happened? What changed?
Okay, now they want me to go to the slide step.
They start thinking.
I start thinking, okay, I got no 1 count. Now we're looking at running counts. I knew Ricky's not going to take off first pitch because I just walked him on 4 straight. So I know he's not going to run first pitch. He's going to give Devo an opportunity to walk also. So now I'm in slide step mode, which, as I said, I've never done before.
And yet, though you went to 3-2 on the count, White flies out.
Yep.
And here's Ricky still at first base.
Yeah.
And 1 out. He hasn't run, and they haven't advanced him.
Yeah, the slide step it's keeping him there because he honestly, Dutch still throws well behind the plate. I'm quick delivering the ball to the plate. Now I got an out and I got a runner on first. I'm feeling fine.
It strikes me, anyway, as being odd that you're in this situation now with the World Series on the line. You're doing something you've said you've never done in your career.
Ever.
During the season, base stealers were 9 for 9 against you. You weren't known as a guy who, like a Mulholland. Nobody even tried to run against him.
No.
Why not just concentrate on the batter and get the outs that you need?
And looking back, dude, honest to goodness, that's my only regret from the World Series. My Game 4 debacle, no excuse, didn't make pitches. World Series, my only regret is that I did not throw out of the delivery I'd thrown out of my entire career to Joe, because I knew how to pitch to Joe. I knew exactly what I wanted to do to him, and in the situation, the count that I was into him, I had him right where I wanted him.
Let's hold off on that for a second because you still got to deal with Paul Molitor, 1 out, tying run on, Molitor at the plate. He'd homered earlier.
I know with Molitor, you stay away early and you come in late. If you can get ahead of him, see, that ball's on the outer third of the plate, which I didn't think is a bad pitch. I guess he called the ball up, is what the umpire thought that was. But I am not going to make a mistake on the inner third to him early in the count.
Line into center, falling fast to hit. Third of the night for Molitor. Henderson stops at second.
You see that? He fought that ball off and got it into center field for a knock, and I'm not going to feel the least bit bad about that. Paul Molitor could have hit Cy Young in this World Series. That's all there was to it.
That was his 3rd hit of the game.
Yeah.
Single, triple homer.
So I did good. He only hit a single off me.
All right, so now at this point, you got the tying run at second, the World Series winning run at first, Joe Carter coming to the plate. He's 0 for 4 in his career against you. It's not a big sample, but he's never gotten a hit against you. What's going through you, mentally and emotionally?
I'm standing on the mound going, I'm fine. The bigger the hitter, the better I felt. I did not like slap hitting second baseman. I did not like guys like Ricky Henderson. I wanted RBI guys. I got an RBI guy standing at the plate now with a guy in scoring position. I just got to get ahead of him.
Okay, but Mitch, I want to know now, is the threat of a stolen base still there with Ricky on second base? Even though now the winning run's at first base, you're guarding against a possible steal with Ricky at second base.
I'm guarding against a stolen base because I know
I had four sack flies that series.
That's the thing. And my whole approach to Joe is to get ahead of him, go up and away. And back then, you didn't have guys hitting the ball out of right field. Right-handed hitters diving out over the plate, hitting the ball out of right field. If Joe's going to take me deep, it's going to be to left center or to left. If I get 2 strikes on him, all I got to do is throw him a fastball up, out over the plate. He's going to hit a lazy fly ball to right. So I absolutely have to guard against Henderson stealing third.
Plus, of all the great base stealers, and Ricky is obviously #1 on the list, he was the guy most apt to steal third. I mean, he would steal third as soon as look at you.
Oh, yeah.
So you're thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I know if he gets to third and with Joe up, then I'm going to be put in a situation that I'm either going to have to get ahead of Joe and get him to chase and strike him out up, or we're going to load the bases and I'm going to have to turn into a ground ball pitcher. And that is not my strength.
Well, that's a guy who thinks right field's a foul ball. We saw in this game how much you love to hook the ball, Joe. I mean, you went one 8-year stretch without an opposite field home run. Well, and we saw your fly balls earlier, outside pitches, trying to hook
I went 7 years in Toronto before I finally hit a home run to right field there.
Then you were late on a fastball in the middle of the
No, it was a two-strike
And what people don't know is very rarely in this game will you run into a down and in right-handed hitter. Joe Carter, I knew, was a down and in right-handed hitter.
Running into a down and in right-handed hitter at the worst possible time. I don't think there's much suspense attached to this, but Joe Carter will be at the plate when we come back. Okay, Game 6, 1993 World Series. Toronto up 3-2. Phillies lead 6-5, bottom of the 9th, 2 on, 1 out. Joe Carter at the plate against Mitch Williams. Sean McDonough is at the mic with Tim McCarver at Skydome.
So the tying run is at second. The run that would win the World Series is at first, and Joe Carter is the batter.
I'm nervous right now.
I ain't. I've seen this thing so many times, I know how it ends.
Joe drove in. A run in the first with a sacrifice fly tonight.
My theory was go up there, and I was not going to swing until I got a strike.
Williams has fallen behind Carter 2-0.
So this count here, Joe, 2-0. You're taking all the way here?
I'm taking all the way.
And there's a strike. 2-1 on Carter. Carter is 0 for his last 7. And he swung at ball 3. 2 balls and 2 strikes.
I get it to 2-2 here.
You threw the breaking ball there.
I threw him a slider there that he went after. And as soon as I got it to 2-2, I should have concerned myself with getting the ball up.
Let's take Sean McDonough at this point.
Now the 2-2. Well hit down the left field line. Way back and goal! Joe Carter with a 3-run homer. The winners and still world champions, the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, I remember that scene vividly. And I'll be honest, it was the longest walk of my life from the mound to that dugout. And I've joked about it over the years, but when I sit and I look at it and I see the replay, I see where the pitch is, and then I look back at the game, it epitomized our team. We were down 5-1 and came back and took the lead, and I let us down.
That really was not a bad pitch, though.
To you,
I mean, well, but down and in. Now, but I want to go a step before that. On the 2-1 pitch, you threw the slider, and I swung and looked very bad on it. And so now, in my mind, I'm thinking he's got to come back with that same pitch. He has to. There's no way down, no way, if and buts or his body. He's got to come back that last pitch because I am a notorious bad ball hitter. but I'd like to be up in those situations with guys on base. And when he shook off the first pitch, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, is he messing with me? You know, because I know he's got to come up with breaking ball. And even though he threw the fastball, I was still looking breaking ball because I knew I had to really bear down and keep my eye on the ball. And the only reason, I mean, the pitch he threw me was a great pitch, but the only reason why I kept it fair was because I was looking breaking ball the whole time.
Mitch, 2-2. You did shake the first sign. Tell us about the shake.
It was, I think Dutch put down a slider. And I knew what I wanted him to do. I wanted to throw a fastball up and away there. I wanted, like I said, I wanted to either strike him out up or get a lazy fly ball hit to right to where it does no damage. And I knew Joe Carter was a rare down and in fastball hitter. And it almost, as soon as it left my hand, I knew I made the mistake.
Now, at this point in the count, it's 2-2. You have to be concerned, as we talked about, concerned with Ricky. But at 2-2, maybe even Ricky Henderson isn't going to run in that situation. Did you think about going to the full windup there?
No, I didn't, and I look back on it, and that's my own stupidity. You hold base runners by changing your times, stepping off, throwing over. And I look back, and as I said, that's my only regret. Did I regret losing the World Series? I loved the fact that I got the opportunity to play in one. The only regret is I didn't do things the way I did them my whole life.
Joe, there's only two men on this planet that can answer this question. At the moment you ended the World Series with a home run, Mazeroski being the other one, describe the feeling, first of all, at contact, and then the feeling, if you even can put it into words, rounding the bases.
Well, when I hit the ball, in my head, I saw the ball off the bat. And when I looked up, I never saw the ball because all I saw was lights. So I knew I hit it pretty good, didn't know if it was going to be high enough to get out. And when I saw Pete kind of jog over and turn his back, and then I knew it was out, the first thing, I mean, I'm jumping up and down. The first thing that came to my mind, honest to goodness, was make sure you touch all the bases. That was what that's what I wanted to do. And after I touched first base and I'm rounding, getting ready to go to second base, going like, okay, what do you do now? I mean, this is unbelievable. And I said, man, I wish I would have learned to do cartwheels when I was younger, because I would have did cartwheels around the bases. I mean, not
stayed after to hit you in the neck if you'd have done that.
And that's the thing about baseball. You know, you don't want to show anybody up. And what Mitch done, and I've said this, when that home run happened, I got all kind of calls, you know, the next week to do everybody's show, Jay Leno, David Letterman, all those things, and I didn't do them. And mainly because I said, you know, what I did, sure, it was a great thing, but it was all in the realm of baseball. That's what I was paid to do. You have two guys out there, two teams fighting out. He gave it his best, I gave it my best. It just so happens that this was the one time that I got the best of him. But it wasn't, you know, nobody's fault. It's just a game of baseball.
Well, you're calm and analytical now, coming up on 18 years later, but the emotion was a little fresher in the clubhouse when Tim McCarver caught up with Joe Carter.
And Joe Carter joins us. Joe, looked like a fastball down and in, right?
No, in fact, it was a slider. Oh, what? That was down and in. It was the same pitch I just swung and missed. But at that time, I said I'm going to choke up because the only pitch he's throwing for a strike is a slider. I just kind of just stayed down on it, tried to make contact. You know, I thank God. I mean, this is a storybook ending. I told my wife before I went to the ballpark, I said something special is going to happen today. You know, what can you say? This is awesome. This is unbelievable.
You caught the ball last year in Atlanta, the last out from Mike Timlin. What is the difference between this year, obviously, other than your involvement with the game-winning hit?
You may think it's ironic, but after I told everybody I was going to catch the last out. When we didn't score there in the 8th inning, I said, now I'm going to drive in the winning run to myself, and I'm thinking that. And now I said, I've got to be a part of that. You know, you look at the films from last year, I got to make the last out, and now this year, you know, it's the game-winning home run. I mean, this is, I can't explain it.
Joe, you had a very, very good career, but without this home run, it's not the same. How has this changed your life?
Well, the way that it's changed it is that there's not a day that go by that I do not meet someone and they tell me exactly where they were, what they were doing on that particular moment. Every single day, something like that happens. And And people will always remember that. And, you know, with me, you know, it was awesome. It was great. I mean, but playing a team sport, when you come through for your teammates, and Mitch said he let his teammates down, well, without Mitch, the team would not have been there. And so you win as a team, you lose as a team. And it just so happened we happened to win as a team. But when you come through, when everybody is rooting for you, I mean, it's a great feeling in baseball. And I love to be on that stage. I was not afraid of failure. You know, if I'd struck out against Mitch or hit him to a double play, you know, we were going to come back in Game 7. You know, but I'm not worried about that. I'm not worried about if I do bad. But as long as I can give it my best, my motto is I've always lived every single game as if it was my last game.
Yep.
And if I can look myself in the mirror and say I gave it my best that day, then that's all anyone can ask.
Mitch, you must have been stunned because you were not a guy who gave up home runs. I think you gave up only 3 all year long. It had been about 2 months since you gave up a home run. It must have been a punch in the gut to see the ball go out of the park. Did you see it go out?
Yeah. Well, I knew it was gone. Every pitcher knows that sound. And I, to this day, until the day I die, will blame Incaviglia. He wasn't playing high enough and left. But no, you know. And I wasn't a guy that gave up a lot of home runs. But when you do give them up, you don't have to. I think if they show the replay, they show me double take. But I start off the mound, turn around one more time, and just keep walking.
In the immediate aftermath, here's Mitch at his locker.
I don't sit here and feel pity for myself, nothing. I let my team down. That's the only part of the thing that bothers me. They busted their ass in that game tonight. In the series, I blew 2 games in the series. That is the only thing that bothers me is I let my teammates down because we battled all year long. I did the job I was brought here to do all year long. I didn't get it done in the World Series. I can't change this one, no matter how hard I'd love to. For no other reason than to please my teammates because they busted their ass and stuck behind me all year long while I let them down. And that's something I can deal with. I'll have to deal with it. But don't expect me to curl up and hide from people because I gave up a home run in the World Series. Life's a bitch. I could be digging ditches somewhere. Well, I'm not.
You know, that attitude is what I love about this guy. I mean, you put it all out on the line. And one day you're the hero, the next day you could be the GOAT. It could have happened to me. You know, if I could hit to double play, I struck out. But as competitors, you want to compete against the best. You want to go out there and compete. And when it's all said and done, it's like, hey, he gave his best, I gave my best. It just so happens I came out on top that time, you know, and he, like a man, he stood up and said, hey, the ball was in his hand.
The most ironic thing of the whole deal, if I had got him out, there'd have never been a word said about me.
You're not a story.
There was no story.
It was tough. It was tough for a while in Philadelphia, right?
You know, honestly, the fans in Philly, it was tough after Game 4.
There were death threats after Game 4.
Yeah, I had, which I didn't find out about until after Game 5. After Schilling had thrown his shutout, I found out that they had armed people watching my family during the game because there had been death threats. So, but as far as going back to Philly, those people have always treated me great. I never hesitated to go back. My wife is from the Philly area. She grew up on the Jersey side. I never hesitated to come back. So like I said, it wasn't something I was ashamed of. The ball was in my hand when he had it out of the park. That's all there was to it. There is no excuse.
That being said, Mitch, is there some pain associated with it? Is there a what-if that always gnaws at you?
There's no what-ifs. There's some pain because of watching the replay. The replay doesn't bother me. The discussion they showed that I had with the press afterwards, I still feel that way today. The loss, I treated every game I ever played in the exact same. Spring training, regular season, World Series. If I lost, I was mad, period. I hated it. And it's like Joe said, he didn't have a fear of failure. I just had an extreme hatred of it. And I look back on that, and that's still, to this day, the only thing that I regret is that team was the best team I was ever a part of.
Mitch Williams and Joe Carter, forever linked in baseball history. Thanks to you both, and to Tom Verducci as always. That's game number 14 on our countdown of the 20 greatest games, at least in our estimation, of the last 50 seasons. Number 13 next time. We'll see you then.
Here's the pitch on the way. A swing and a belt. Left field. Way back. Blue Jays win it. The Blue Jays are World Series champions. Touch 'em all, Joe.